There's a lot of people who've got like 1% Bitcoin or something. And I'm like, you got the right idea, the wrong percentage, you know?
Yeah.
You know, 1% is, Saylor said it best. He's like, if you have 2% of Bitcoin, then you must have 50 other ideas that are just as good as Bitcoin. And you don't, right?
Yeah.
So you don't. So why should you be only put 2% with your best idea? That doesn't make any sense. In the longer term thing, I think Bitcoin's going to do so well over the next 10 years that even if you buy it at a 3x multiple and it goes to 1x multiple, if it goes up 20 times, you're going to be fine.
Fred Krueger begins by emphasizing Bitcoin's resilience and long-term potential. He asserts that even at a hypothetical valuation of $200,000 today, Bitcoin would still be a solid investment over the next decade. However, he advises caution in overcommitting at inflated prices, suggesting a measured approach based on historical trend lines and the Kelly Criterion. This probability-based formula can help investors determine optimal position sizes relative to risk, ensuring they maintain a balance between opportunity and preservation. Krueger stresses the importance of rebalancing a Bitcoin position as part of a broader portfolio strategy. He notes that many investors fail to appreciate the application of the power law, a mathematical principle that can predict the likelihood of extreme outcomes. This law highlights Bitcoin's potential for significant growth over long periods, while also underscoring its limited predictive power for short-term movements.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
I would say if we were buying Bitcoin at 200,000 right now, I would say probably still a good buy for the next 10 years, but you're trading at 2.5 times the trend line. If we were at 200,000 now, and I'd say probably not a great time to just put in your entire position. You know what I mean? So or if you already have your position, maybe it's time to lighten up a little bit. So and I think that you can be more rigorous about this with this Kelly Criterion and sort of rebalancing kind of percentage. You just say, I'm gonna, I will now try to maintain a different percentage. I don't think a lot of people are following the power law right now. So I think it's because it's not well understood. I think it's a weapon that you can use, and I don't think there's anybody's trying to front run the power law or understand it. And honestly, it's not something you can arbitrage, right? So it's not like, oh, great, I see the power law, great. So now I'm going to go buy Bitcoin and sell futures or do something, and somehow I'm going to get this steady, no volatility road up. It doesn't give you that, right? All the power law tells you is, how high are we likely to go up? What kind of volatility are we likely to have? And, and what does the ultimate gain look like, over a pretty long period? I'd say it has pretty good predictive power for 4 years plus. It has very low predictive power for 1 year, right? Power law does not tell me anything about next year. There's a lot of people who've got like 1% Bitcoin or something. And I'm like, you got the right idea, the wrong percentage, 1% is, Saylor said it best. He's like, if you have 2% of Bitcoin, then you must have 50 other ideas that are just as good as Bitcoin. And you don't, right?
Yeah.
So you don't. So why should you be only put 2% with your best idea? That doesn't make any sense, right?
I agree.
So, I think that's the thing is to really get a sense of, how far this could go, and, whether, and to have a little bit of a plan ahead of time for either when it goes up or down. And that's why I think having some firepower is a good thing. For me, that's a number like 30%, So
Yeah.
being 70% long and 30% cash or liquid equivalent, is fine. If the market completely craters, and it continues to stay down, great. We'll buy some Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If the market really, really rallies, I will peel off some. I'm not stuck on the actual number of Bitcoin that I hold. If Bitcoin's at 1 million, I'm happy peeling off quite a bit of Bitcoin. In the longer term thing, I think Bitcoin's going to do so well over the next 10 years that even if you buy it at a 3x multiple and it goes to 1x multiple, if it goes up 20 times, you're going to be fine, right? But I don't think it's especially for people who've owned Bitcoin for a while, they're not going to take a tax hit and buy MicroStrategy. I think the real question is, right? The real question is, and I also don't think that if you got Bitcoin in cold storage, are you really going to sell it and buy a stock which has a third of the Bitcoin that you have in cold storage per Bitcoin? You're not going to do it, right? So I think, but on the other hand, if you're an entity that can't invest in Bitcoin and you really want to get exposure to the Bitcoin price, are these convertible bonds possibly a good idea? Not bad. You've got your downside that's protected, right? They're probably going to be money good. And you have some upside possibility if Bitcoin goes up as much as we think it is, you make double your money, So I think it's a different audience, really, for the most part. Now, there are some Bitcoiners who are, playing in this space.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think for the most part, it's sort of institutions who can't buy Bitcoin. So I really think that there's a pyramid. I think if you can buy the real stuff, buy the real stuff, right? I think there's some advantage to getting the ETFs as well. And I think the advantage is, you have money that's sort of in the system with the ETFs, right? So if they ever start clamping down on self-custody or close the, make it more difficult to sell Bitcoin, they could, right? They could do that, right?
Krueger reiterates the importance of preparation in navigating Bitcoin's inherent volatility. He advises investors to develop plans for various market scenarios, whether prices skyrocket or plunge. This strategic foresight minimizes emotional decision-making and positions investors to capitalize on market fluctuations. Krueger's pragmatic approach includes maintaining liquidity for opportunistic buys during downturns and adjusting exposure during rallies. This flexibility ensures that investors can participate in Bitcoin's long-term growth while mitigating downside risks. For Krueger, the key is to stay committed to a disciplined framework, allowing the power law and sound strategy to guide decisions.
And, I had Plan C. I was talking with him, and somebody's like, well, if it can't tell me, he goes, where's the power law say it's going to be by the end of next year? And Plan C was like, somewhere between 50,000 and 250,000. And then he goes, well, what kind of law is that? And he goes, well, it's the same law that in 2018, when Bitcoin was at 4,000, would have said it's somewhere between, in 2024, it'd be somewhere between 25,000 and 100,000. And yeah, guess what? We're right there. Yeah. So, it may look like, it doesn't have good power for 1 year, but it makes a pretty striking predictions for longer periods, These are not big ranges, for longer periods. Like if I tell you in 10 years, it's going to be a minimum of 350,000 and a maximum of 2.5 million, that's saying something, right? First of all, the minimum's pretty great, right? Yeah. You're going to 5x your money in 10 years. Amazing, right? The maximum's even better, but also this range is a pretty narrow range for that to predict that. You know what I mean? In the log space, it's a line with a little band of 30% either way. So I think it's it's much misunderstood. It shouldn't be used for trading. I do not think. I think the most interesting thing about potential Trump election is this idea of a Bitcoin reserve fund, right? And I got extremely excited about this when we were talking about it in Nashville and everybody was talking about it. And then we're like, will Trump make the announcement or not? And, RFK made the announcement, and then Trump's sort of made the announcement, and then Loomis put this bill out. And, look, I think it's an amazingly great idea, right, to have this reserve fund. If we get a reserve fund and America builds that reserve fund, and I do think if Trump gets in, we'll get some version of that. It may just be, we're just going to keep the Bitcoin that we already have in the reserve fund, right? To start, we'll start with that. But it may be more than that. It may be we're going to add X amount of Bitcoin per year in this reserve fund. If this happens, I think other nations are going to see that this is like, you just gave me the green light to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You guys are doing the reserve fund. Well, hello, Dubai. You know what I mean? They're going to do the same thing. So I think that is I think on the other hand, if Kamala gets in, I think that might postpone that a couple of years, But I definitely think if Trump gets in, we could start seeing that next year. We could start seeing we could see us adopting a reserve fund, and you could see, maybe even Europe saying that they're going to do some, Bitcoin reserve, or Australia, who knows, right? But I just think sky's the limit if we start seeing the U.S. doing a reserve fund. So I'm super bullish on that. MicroStrategy, it's on a tear. I own MicroStrategy calls. I own some. They're pretty much in the money now. So it's essentially like I own MicroStrategy stock. But I did not expect this to have this kind of premium that is trading at currently. Right? I think it's it's exceeded my expectations. I would never short it. I don't think partly because we have this thing called Bitcoin. Why would I do something like short some other company or try to it makes no sense, right? Like the play that you have to do is owning Bitcoin. Now, if you can own it as Bitcoin, I think that's the best. If you can't own it as Bitcoin, then you have to go for something like MicroStrategy.
Fred Krueger's insights offer a masterclass in navigating the complexities of Bitcoin investment. From leveraging the predictive power of the power law to advocating for Bitcoin reserve funds, his analysis underscores the transformative potential of this digital asset. Krueger's strategic approach, balancing long-term vision with short-term flexibility, provides a roadmap for investors seeking to maximize returns while managing risk. As Bitcoin continues its journey toward mainstream adoption, the principles shared by Krueger will remain invaluable. Whether you're a retail investor or an institutional entity, understanding these dynamics can empower you to make informed decisions in an ever-evolving financial landscape.
Please like and subscribe my channel.